I saw these gems at the dollar store. To start this project, I need to get the old window ready. Some white paint will do the trick to lighten up this dark frame. Now that the paint is dry, I want to give the edges a little distressing, and it's time to start adding the clear gems. Now that I have the first layer of clear gems down, I want to use these beautiful blue and purple ones. I'm using a clear silicone adhesive to stick the gems in place.
So I grabbed an old window at a rummage sale, I cleaned it up, and now I'm just adding a coat of white paint. When the paint dries, you can just go back with a razor blade and scrape off any that's left on the glass. Now I'm gonna grab these little gems. I have them in blue, red, white, and clear. I'm using a really strong glue to attach these marbles to the glass. This is E6000. It's gonna hold these on here super well.
I grabbed an old window and transformed it. I started by cutting up a palette, removing the boards and hammering all the nails out. I gave them a light sand and trimmed them to length to make a square frame the same size as the window. I used my Kreg jig to make 2 pocket holes. I cut and sanded 3 more boards to fit the inside width and used pocket holes to secure them to the frame. Sanded the window frame. I taped on either side where the caulking was and applied new white caulk with silicone and wiped smooth. I immediately removed the tape to reveal a clean finish. I attached hinges to secure the window to the pallet frame. I added a glass knob in the middle of the right side of the window. I added a magnet in the top right corner and a screw and washer on the inside top right side of the window for a magnetic closure. I cleaned the glass really well and sprayed soapy water all over the surface and applied a window cling that makes it look like stained glass. I attached a piece of 1/4-inch plywood with wood glue and brad nails to the back.
The window that we got from an architectural salvage place, take a ruler and you're gonna measure inside the windows because that's gonna help you decide how big your photos need to be. I took 8 by 10 photos and cut them down. First thing I need to do is obviously decide what order I want them in. So I'm gonna start flipping these around. I'm going to tape these in and I'm actually just going to use painter's tape. Now let's talk about putting on hooks.
The next time you see an old window, be sure to grab it.
I picked these flower pots up at the dollar store. I want to add some drain holes in the bottom of these. Next, I want to go ahead and I'm actually going to paint mine, and I'm just going to lightly sand this to bring out that pattern. So I'm going to use a water-based top coat here.
So I want to place this about where I want it on the window frame. And I'm going to just draw a couple of little dots here because I want to drill some pilot holes, just a screw, and then I put a little washer on the inside of it just to make sure it's nice and secure. It is time to fill them with some beautiful flowers.
I took my window pane and made sure to clean it and dry it very well. After that, I removed the hardware. I then used a product called Looking Glass. I actually decided to spray the back of the window pane. I purchased some D-rings from the hardware store.
I printed off a couple of simple mandala patterns. I'm gonna slip it under the glass, pattern side up. I found this set of puffy paint. I'm gonna start filling in the pattern. I wanna start with the piece of the pattern that are separate from each other. It's time to fill in the remaining sections. Next up is to finish the swirls. I'm gonna give the frame a quick coat of the same turquoise paint. The final thing I need to do to the picture pattern is outline the swirls again. I'm just gonna add some clear glue to all of the untouched glass. I found this storage box at the thrift store. To start, I'm going to use some black paint to help cover up that pattern. When painting fabric, I always find it best to water it down a little bit. And now I want to add the brown paint. Thinned it out with a little bit of water as well. And I'm going to use a chip brush to apply it, as it will look more natural with a little bit peeking through the brown. The final step to making my faux leather look real is to cover the paint with wax. The wax gives the paint a really nice supple feel that mimics real leather. I'm thrilled with how good this storage box looks now. I like to use little wooden blocks to raise the piece up off the tarp whenever I'm painting. I've popped this old candle into the microwave until it's soft, and I'm just going to take it and rub it on the edges of the piece and over the hardware. For a piece of furniture that has previously been painted, I like to use a nice thick paint to cover it. This is going to hide all the imperfections and adhere beautifully to the old surface. To paint the top of this piece, I'm actually going to use a wall sponge. The sponge allows me to cover the top quickly, and it makes a nice even finish without any brush strokes. While the top is drying, I'm going to go ahead and add a second coat to the rest of the piece. Now that the gray paint on the top is dry, I'm going to take a pot, put my paint in the middle, and add some hot water around it. Glossy paint goes on a little more smoothly when you warm it up. I've put on a pair of gloves now since the can's going to be a little warm to the touch, and after giving it a stir, I'm going to pour it all over the top of my piece. To smooth it out, I'm going to use the same sponge I used before. The last thing I need to do is take a sanding sponge to those edges and hardware where I rubbed the candle at the beginning. The wax from the candle protected those surfaces below and now allows me to add a little distressing without going right down to the wood. My sad little washstand has been completely transformed, and you wouldn't even know it was the same piece. I found this old magazine holder at the thrift store. To start, I've already gone ahead and cleaned it, and now I'm going to give it a coat of paint. I have this piece of lace. To get the lace ready to use, I'm going to spray one side with a very light coat of tacky spray. This will keep the lace in place while I use it. I'm going to mix up another color of paint. Now it's time to use the lace as a stencil. I'm using a small blunt end paintbrush with just a small amount of paint on it, and I'm going to dab up and down all over the lace. Here's a little sneak peek of what's happening. To finish off my box, I'm just going to go ahead and use the same paint to add a little color to the edges. I absolutely love how pretty this looks. The lace painting added just the perfect touch of a pattern. I found this beat up table at the thrift store last week and it's quite damaged. I'm going to start by painting my table white. I'm going to add all kinds of bright colored paint into my container, and I'm going to add some texture into the paint, and I'm going to use the Fusion Fresco powder, but you could use baking soda and mix it into each of those colors. I'm going to start putting it over the stencil, and we want to start just spreading this all over, and I'm going to hold down the stencil as much as possible here. Okay, and once you have your stencil completely covered like this, you want to very gently try and take off a little bit off of the top. We can peel up that stencil. How gorgeous is that? Who would have thought that you could turn a $7 thrift store find into this beautiful piece of art with just a stencil and some paint? To get the table ready, I'm going to start by giving it a quick clean. Next, I want to give it a light sanding. I want to wipe it again. I like to start with the pedestal first and then do the top. I'm going to add and combine some water with some white paint. To apply the wash, I'm going to use this chip brush because the bristles are natural and uneven. To soften up those lines a little bit, I can wipe them with just a damp paper towel. I absolutely love how pretty this table is now and how much the lighter color changes its look.
The next time you are at a thrift store, pick up some inexpensive wicker baskets. Dip the paintbrush in the paint and then pounce. Take the brush and lightly brush the paint onto the basket in the main direction of the basket weave. This basket finish looks fantastic, styled with flowers or green plants. Take a wicker basket with a very light finish. Spray paint the basket in light layers with an oil-rubbed bronze color. Let the basket dry completely. Paint in light layers. You will notice that the paint dries very fast between layers because there is actually very little paint used. I hope this inspired you to give inexpensive wicker baskets an updated look with paint.
I've got an old folding table that needs to be resurfaced. First thing we got to do is get it cleaned up. Next, we need some liquid wood. We're just going to go ahead and start painting away. We're going to go ahead and put that second coat on. You're going to take that graining tool and go back and forth. It's time to stain. Take a lint-free cloth and you're going to take it right off. We're going to use a water-based polyurethane. and it looks like a brand new faux wood table.
I'm giving this little side table a makeover. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually give it a coat of black paint. Now I've taken some creamy white paint and I've added water to it. I've ripped up some newspaper and I'm going to apply some of this paint. Taking pieces of the scrunched up paper, I press it into the paint and wiggle it around. Keep repeating the process until you get to the end. Now the tabletop is dry, I'm going to use this stencil. I'm going to give it 2 coats of this gloss decorator's varnish. Here's my finished tabletop. I think it looks quite effective. It's a very easy technique to do. I'm going to apply both these colours, the green and the blue, randomly over the top. I'm now going to apply 1 coat of a water-based top coat. I've used some cardboard and I'm just going to cut one edge, cutting very randomly on the bottom, grooves in it. In here I have some dark green paint and I've combined it with their water-based top coat. I apply the green paint on top and then taking my cardboard, going to randomly scrape into it, okay? So then we go on to the next bit, working just randomly, but I decided to follow some of the contours with a metallic gold gel pen. And here's my finished table. I actually decided to paint the edges gold to tie in the gold that I had done on the top.
Grab your hot glue gun. I'm going to start at one end of the mold and fill it slowly with the glue. The first mold is dry now, so I'm going to go ahead and peel it out. I can trim off any little strings and overflow. I'm going to give it 2 coats of a creamy white paint. Some all-purpose glue on the back of each one will be enough to adhere it to the furniture piece. I'm going to paint them using the same paint that I used on the stand. So I'm going to put a layer of clear, soft wax all over everything. I'm going to use some dark wax and a small brush to push it into all of those little details. And do a little sanding around the edges just to add some faux age. It was so easy to add such pretty details with some hot glue and a couple of molds.
Drawn a line straight down the middle of the drawers and I'm going to use a red and a blue paint. When the first colour has dried, I then take the other colour and paint on top of it. Then take your spray bottle and spritz over the wet paint and then set a timer for 3 minutes. When the time is up, we have to start removing the water now. And I use a toilet roll. Now I'm moving on to the top of the dresser and I've split the top in half. Now all my drawers are done and dry and I'm taking a stencil and some modelling paste and applying it to the stencil. I finished off the dresser by doing the stencil again on the top and here it is. I hope you enjoyed this and you're inspired to have a go at this crazy technique.
We decided to elevate our driveway entrance. We picked a spot on either side of the driveway and started digging a hole using both a shovel and some post hole diggers. We then added a wooden post to the hole we just dug. I held the wooden post in place in the hole after we got it nice and leveled, and then we slowly started packing in the dirt that we previously removed. You don't want to fill the hole completely with dirt. Leave some room for some quick setting concrete on top. This will definitely secure the wooden post and make sure it stays in place. Then, using a watering can, we poured water on top to set it. We decided to stain them a darker color, and then we attached some ornamental hooks on the front of the post. This elevates our driveway entrance so much and gives us some instant curb appeal. Another little extra piece we decided to add to the pole planters was a solar operated light on top. We drilled that in on the very top of the post, and at night it gives off a flame that appears to be flickering, which is a very nice touch. So both day and night, our driveway has a beautiful entrance thanks to these easy do-it-yourself pole planters.
I have this area in the front of my house that I want to beautify, so I grabbed a bowl from the Dollar Tree and put it over to make sure it fits. Then I went to Home Depot and grabbed some spray foam. Next, what I'm going to do is put the bowl down on a garbage bag, and I'm going to grab the spray foam and start covering all the bowl up. And we're going to go layer over layer. Now, this took about 3 cans, but I want to make sure before I put the next layer on, that's a little bit dry to the touch. Once you get it on, you want to give it about 24 hours. The next step is we got to carve the foam. Now you're going to shape this all over. Next step, I'm going to pour some water into a bucket. I'm using Cemental. What we're going to do is mix it. You want to be able to shape it and use it almost like a clay on top of the foam. Go ahead and just start adding it to the foam and just keep smoothing it on. For the second layer, I made it a little more runny. Just go ahead and smooth it in. If it looks a little rough, you can grab a chip brush, dip it in some water, and then you can start smoothing out the concrete that you put on. Now let it dry, and then I took some black paint, watered it down, and I'm going to add a little bit of color to the rock. So I'm going to add some brown to it also. You can go with any color you want. It's time to place it in the yard. Now I'm ready to cover up the pipe that I want to have hidden, and it's time to go ahead and add some ground cover. And look at that. What a beauty. So I'm going to start scraping all the grass out of the area, kind of level it up, and then I'm going to grab some high strength concrete mix. Go ahead and get some water, pour it in. Now this concrete mix is going to be a little soupier than normal, so just keep mixing. Add water as you need. I want it to slide right off the tool. Now, grab a quart bag, Ziploc if you can, and we're going to start filling these up. No more than 3/4. What you're going to need to do is make sure that you get all of the air out. Now, find that area and start placing those bags, and then start shaking it. It's going to expand as the concrete settles. Smooth it out, and then place the next one next to it. Part of this, I've got a surprise for you. I took some rocks that glow during the night. I'm going to cut a top part of the bag out, peel it away, and I'm going to take those little pebbles and put them in there. Once these are in and the bags have dried overnight, start cutting the plastic and you're going to peel it away. Take some sand and place it all in between the cracks. Now you can just dump it out. I like to spread it a little evenly just to make sure I fill it really good. Once you got it on there, go ahead and start brooming it off. It's going to fill the cracks, and there it is. Our antique, rustic, cobblestone looking path. And do you remember those glowing pebbles? Here it is at night leading the path. They are so nice.
I grabbed 2 flower pots of different sizes from Dollar Tree. I used 150 grit sandpaper to lightly scuff up the surface. Then I applied silicone to a plastic lid and attached it to the bottom of the smaller pot. I siliconed all the way around the lid edge to create a waterproof seal. While it was drying, I grabbed some Rust-Oleum stone textured spray paint. I spray painted the outside of both pots and around the inside edge and let it dry overnight. After the spray paint dried, I mixed ready-mix concrete in a separate bucket, following the directions on the bag. I carefully placed the wet concrete in the larger bucket. I placed a large rock in the middle to help take up space. The concrete filled the bucket about 1/3 full. I used a scrap piece of 2x4 to tamper down the concrete to get rid of any bubbles and smooth it all out. After the concrete dried, I placed a plastic container in the middle so the smaller pot would sit higher up. I grabbed some garden bed pots from the recycling and used them to fill out the space and added river rock to cover the recycling. I washed another handful of river rock, placed them inside the small pot, and filled it with water. Lastly, I added this solar fountain, and it was a sunny day, so it started working immediately. No batteries required. I hope this inspired you to create your own DIY fountain and patio of your dreams.
We'll start by giving this old fence a quick sanding and then brush the dust off and we'll be ready for stenciling. Got a dense foam roller. Offload the roller so there won't be too much paint. When you're stenciling, try to use a nice even pressure. And now you can remove the stencil, randomly place your next stencil and just continue. Okay, I've got the stem stencil placed. So now we're going to use the leaf stencil. I pre-place my stencils to knock it right out. What do you think of this project? It turned out great, and it's an easy one for first-time stencilers.
Okay, so first stage of this is for me to get this fence completely painted. I have got these melamine plastic plates I just picked up at the dollar store. I've also got a couple of these larger silver coloured plates. That's isopropyl alcohol. I've just cleaned the plate with that. I'm going to take a little bit of alcohol here. I'm just going to squirt it onto the plate. And then I've got these really lovely, I'm just going to drop a little bit on here. I'm just going to move this around a bit to start with. Alcohol on there. There we go. Here we go. A little bit more of that. You can use a hairdryer or a heat gun. I'm just going to go around and around in circles and just see if we can get some nice kind of edges. Okay, now because this is alcohol ink, I'm actually going to seal it with this Kmart varnish. The second version that I'm going to do on these little plates is I'm actually going to use these stick and style stencils. This I've already coated with a second coat of paint. Okay, let's take this stencil off and see how it looks. Our third technique that we're going to create on these plates is going to be, we're going to go full Jackson Pollock. Next up, we're going to use this silver bullet, exactly the same. We can do that on one of our smaller plates. So let's see what it looks like now that I've hung them all up.
I simply filled up a sandwich bag full of water and a handful of pennies inside. I sealed it up and then I hung it outside. The light hits the bag full of shiny, pretty pennies. It refracts and confuses the flies and insects. Overwhelmed, they will fly away and find somewhere else to hang out.
Take the lid off a recycled bottle. In 1 cup boiling water and 1/8 cup sugar. Mix until the sugar dissolves. Flip the lid so it is like a funnel. Place it into the bottom part of the bottle. Tape the lid onto the base and set it inside or out where flies are bad. Mix 1 cup apple cider vinegar, 1 teaspoon lemon juice, 1/4 teaspoon Castile soap. Cut the lid off a recycled bottle. Pour the mixture into the bottle. Flip the lid so it's like a funnel into the bottom part of the bottle. Tape the lid onto the base. Place peppermint and lavender in 1 cup of boiling water.
Let it steep for 5 minutes. Drain out the herbs and place the water in a squirt bottle. 1 cup of vinegar or witch hazel. Give it a little shake and it's ready to use. Make a mixture of 1/8 teaspoon Castile soap and 1 cup water. Place in a spray bottle. To spray the ants directly, it will soften their shells and they will die. Ants leave behind pheromones, and that is how they follow the pathway to the food source. Spray the point of entry, the area around it, and wipe it up. Spraying and wiping up the area will erase the pheromones. Make an ant bait trap. Mix together 3 teaspoons sugar and 1 teaspoon borax. Get a small container with a lid and poke holes in the side so the ants can crawl in. Place the bait inside and put at the location of entry. You can also use a small lid from a recycled bottle. Place the bait inside and set it near the nest. If you have pets or kids, you won't want them getting into the borax, so make the trap with a small container instead. Alternatively, you can also make a mixture of a 1/2 cup of vinegar and 1/2 cup of water as well. Find the point of entry on the outside and the inside and spray with the mixture and wipe up. Plant natural repellents around your yard, like lavender and basil. Another way to get rid of ants is to find their home, flood it with boiling water. You might need to do this a few days in a row to get rid of them. I hope this inspires you to try some DIY bug repellents and traps of your own. I'm busy getting my garden and apple tree ready. I get those pesky rabbits, squirrels, voles, aphids, and more during gardening season. I get voles in both my vegetable and flower gardens almost every year. To keep them out, I have learned to add mothballs to my gardens, and it seems to keep them away. They don't like the smell. Make a red pepper spray. Add 4 cups of water to a squirt bottle, 1 teaspoon dish soap, and 1 tablespoon of red hot or Tabasco sauce. Mix and spray on your plants. This is meant to keep the deer, squirrel, mice, and birds off your plant. Test the plant in a small place to make sure that the plant can handle it and wait for 4 days to see. Spray once a week, and if it rains, you'll need to reapply. Sprinkle red pepper flakes in your garden. It is known to deter rabbits, deer, skunks, raccoons, cats, and dogs. We have learned if you have a rabbit around, you will definitely want a fence to keep them out. We bought this fence at our local hardware store and used screws and fence clips to attach it to our fence. Don't forget to block the gate entryways as well. Put a row of rocks inside the gate so those pests cannot sneak underneath of it. Animals do not like movement or loud noises. I hung a large shepherd's hook in the center of my garden and added a wind chime. I put these simple pinwheels that I found at Dollar Tree in my garden to keep those pests out. The squirrels in my apple tree make me crazy. I wrap the base of the trunk in tinfoil. This deters them from climbing up the trunk, and they don't like how it's reflective. Now, one tip I have is that animals will get used to the items you put in your garden to keep them out. I recommend moving things around once in a while to change it up and throw them off. Plant some marigolds in your garden. Marigolds are amazing flowers that give off a terrible smell, deterring rabbits and deer. My grandma taught me to plant these in my garden. Keep nocturnal animals away by adding solar lights in your garden. Feed those pests somewhere else to keep them away from your garden. I placed water in the cup and birdseed on the plate, and this keeps birds away from my garden. I hope this inspired you to try a few of these tips in your garden or fruit trees at home. So I've got my soap, little grater here, and all I'm gonna do is start by grating the soap. So we are gonna start right here with our windowsill. So all you're gonna do is sprinkle a little bit of your Irish soap right there in the windowsill. If it rains, it's going to basically clean your windowsill, but it will also keep the flies away. So when you're done, just go ahead and close your window. Flies are often attracted to garbage and what's inside. So another thing you can do is take your Irish Spring and just sprinkle a little bit in the bottom of your garbage can to keep flies away as you are filling your garbage. This is an area in our yard where we had some vole damage, and we're in the process of mending the damage that was done. So what I'm gonna do is take some Irish Spring and I'm gonna sprinkle it around this area. And the point of this is that rabbits and other animals don't like the smell of it, so they will avoid this area, and it'll allow our grass to come up and heal in this space. The same thing goes if you have a flower garden. If you have some pests like some squirrels and other animals are eating and picking at this, simply surround it with a bunch of Irish Spring and those pests will leave. Next, I'm gonna take a little bit of Irish Spring, and the amount really depends upon where you're at and how many bugs you have in your area. You're gonna place a funnel on top and pour some water in. Now, if you need something more potent, you can always add some vinegar. And I'm gonna go ahead and give it a little bit of a shake. Now,
Over time, the soap's gonna dissolve. Now this spray is good for a bug spray. It is also great to spray any leaves outside that maybe are being attacked by bugs. So just staying away from the face, of course. Just simply squirt it on yourself all over and have somebody help squirt it on you. Well, this is just a mason jar, and I'm gonna place a bar of soap inside, and I'm gonna place the lid on top. Now I have this old lantern from IKEA, and I simply place the jar inside like that. Then next, when I'm coming to sit outside, I can either open either side, so I can open the small side or the big side. And this helps me when I'm sitting outside, enjoying the outdoors, and then it scares the bugs away while I'm sitting out here. Another thing that I can do with this is I can take the shredded pieces and place them into the recycled jar. I can place the lid on top, and I'll show you what I'll use that for. This is our apple tree, and squirrels love to climb up this thing, and I've always got something eating at this tree. So as I mentioned before, taking one of these lids and putting the shavings inside allow me to either use this side or this side for this useful project. So instead of having to grate it up every single time, I can have one mount, and then I can just go around this apple tree or plant or whatever I need to. Next, we're gonna talk about doorways, because a lot of times bugs are flying in and out of our doors. So how can we stop and prevent that from happening when people open and close our doors just naturally? Now, one of the easy things you can do is hide soap somewhere on your porch. So all I need to do is take my soap, lift up my turtle, place my turtle on top of the soap, and the smell can come out from underneath here, and it radiates through the whole space, therefore keeping the flies and bugs away. I'm gonna teach you another little trick you can do with just the regular bar of soap. So this is our door's edge, and all I'm gonna take is the edge of the bar of soap, and I'm just gonna rub it onto the door frame. And I'm gonna go all the way up and all the way down. Just wanna also rub it on the outside of your door as well. So another place you consider it is around your table. So you're just gonna go around the table here, and it will keep the flies away as you're eating.
Take 2 wire cabinet shelves and 2 plastic bins. Bend the legs of the shelves towards the center. Place storage container lids in the grooves. Now you have the perfect plastic storage container organization. Take 2 wire shower caddies and weave them together. Use zip ties, cut the zip tie tails. Place shower caddies. Now you have the perfect storage for cooking pans, baking sheets.
Let's start with that mess of plastic bags. Lay it out flat, fold it in half, then in half again. Fold it up into triangles. I'm going to take the handles and tuck them into the little pocket of the triangle. Now that same amount of bags fits in that container. To fold a larger reusable bag, lay it out flat and fold it into thirds. Fold the bottom up, tuck the handles in. Now you're able to store these bags vertically. Lay out your kitchen towel, fold it in half again. Fold it into thirds, right into the pocket you created. It's not going to become unfolded. Fold a bag of chips, bringing each corner together on a diagonal. Flip the bag around and fold it down 3 or 4 times. Fold over the corners. It's not gonna leak. Start by tucking in the 2 side pieces. Squeeze the sides together and tuck that final piece, making it line up really nicely in your pantry.
Are you tired of those overcrowded cabinets? Grab you 2 cake pans and a bag of marbles. Take one of those other cake pans, put it on top, and look at it spin. It's perfect for organizing, and it fits right inside your cabinet with ease.
Start with 1 produce bag and roll it in on itself. Continue to do the same with the 3 other produce bags. Secure the outer net to one of the metal clasps on the end of the netting. Now you have a DIY scrub daddy for tough dishes.
What do you do when you need a tiny bag? You take a little cloth napkin and iron, put that on top of your bigger Ziploc bag, and that's going to seal it at the bottom. Then you can put your little carrots inside, and then you're going to just grab some scissors and then trim off the end, and you have a perfect little snack bag.
Grab a curtain rod and 2 heavy-duty command hooks. Measure the placement for the 2 command hooks and hang the rod at your desired height. Arrange everyday items like cake cups, mugs, pictures, or plants using S-hooks on the rod.
We're gonna start with a baking pan and we're gonna fill it with a bunch of marbles. I need to remove the back off the glue dots and then peel off the backing. And I'm gonna place it onto the bottom of the baking sheet. I'm gonna flip them back over. As you can see here, this swivels really nicely. I'm gonna take a cooling rack. I'm gonna bend up either side. Now I'm gonna tip those cooling racks up and I'm going to tie the top of the cooling racks together as well as the bottom. I'm gonna place the glue dots onto the baking sheet. Take those cooling racks and I'm gonna stick them onto the glue dots. And I'm going to press firmly to make sure they adhere well.
And I hope this inspires you to make your own Dollar Tree Lazy Susan.
Grab a curtain rod. Take that curtain rod and all its parts, grab the garbage bag, and that's how you're going to size the curtain rod. Mark it, cut it right there at the mark. Put the ends back on to keep it safe. Make sure you put the brackets on. It goes right on your cabinet door, saves up space and easy to get to. Take a strip of oak and some magnets, and we're going to use what's called a Forstner bit. And you're going to drill out the wood. You're going to do it for 3 different magnets. Take some of that wood glue and place it all over the oak. Take that second strip of oak and put it right there. I use 3 clamps on this one just to hold it together. And once it's together and you put it on the wall, look at that. It's like an invisible magic knife holder. I've got this old glass table, get it all cleaned up. I'm going to tape around all of the edges. Next, we're going to do that 2-part epoxy. We're going to pour it halfway down the table. Next, we're going to mix a little bit of teal. We're going to pour it out. We're going to go with a darker green. And you're going to start spreading out that white. Start getting rid of all that flaky paint. Start spraying it with some good spray paint. It was time to put on the darkest color we have. Put some more waves on and spread it all out. What a wonderful addition to the back porch.
I measured and marked the table in half, 8 even spaces. I piped the mastic into each bottle top and then applied them to the tabletop. I added the remaining tops. I mixed 2 cups of grout with half a cup of water. I used duct tape to make it edge. I spread the grout onto the top of the table and I cleaned away any excess grout. I sanded the edges smooth. Using mosaic sealer, I applied a liberal coat. I love the way the table turned out. I took the table apart, separating the glass from the metal ring. Laid the glass on top of the picture. I mixed 2 parts white glue to 1 part black craft paint. I outlined the sun. And once the lines had dried, I cleaned up any lines that were too thick by cutting them away using a utility knife. I painted the background using a 1-inch wide brush. I added designs to each panel. I gave the paint 2 coats of spray sealant. I used a medium grit sanding sponge. I painted the metal bright blue. The table looks great in our outside space, and friends can't believe that I painted it.
I went to Lowe's and picked up this large plastic terracotta looking pot. Give this a light sand. My decor currently is horizontal stripes, so that's why I'm gonna go ahead and do this and use the width of the frog tape and make this easy for myself. So I am gonna do some pink and white stripes on this. I'm just gonna go around and dot the edges of my pot with some silicone dots. Remove the tape, line up my frog tape with my pink line. All right, so now that our white paint is dry, we are going to peel off our tape again. I'm just going to be using this Rust-Oleum matte clear coat. So here is the final table, and I could not be more excited.
To start, I'm going to need a wood crate, and I'm going to give this a good coat of paint here. So I'm going to flip that desktop over. Then I'm just going to drill some holes and add some screws. To dress it up, I'm just going to add a table runner, faux greenery, some lemons, and a few candles. I'm adding some cushions to the ground, and this makes the perfect outdoor seating area.
And grab some planters right off the shelf, some primer, and some textured finish. We're going to go with this square base. So we're going to put some glue here right around the edges. And I'm just going to wipe it around the edge just like this. Put it right on top. This waterproof container right here, flip it over. I can just take the glue now and just put it all inside here. Go ahead and take our pot, put it right inside there. We're going to go ahead and put some glue right on top. Want to make sure that we get it just centered perfectly. And I want to put on a good coat of primer. I went with an off-white cream color, get every square inch. Look at how good that looks right at your front door.
Get this clay pot sealer and give it a nice gentle spray. Give them a coat. This Rust-Oleum, this silicone glue, waterproof, flexible. Pull my jute rope right into it. So I'm going to do the same thing right there. Open up the silicone. Put this all around the top, centered right on there. There we have my side table. I think this is exactly what you might want to make this summer.